Guys, welcome to the Brain Dump. You got Austin here. Anthony, how are you doing, sir?
Hello, I'm good. Hola.
So, Anthony, you just met him about 2 seconds ago, but I'm going to introduce you to the man that has played probably a bigger role in the man that you see today is this gentleman right here. Been my honor to call him, really, I don't even know what other to say, soul brother, because I got introduced to him by Sal, and within about 2.5 seconds on the phone call, I was in Austin, he was in Costa Rica. I was like, I love this man. I want to know more about this man. And then I want to say like a couple of weeks later, I signed up for coaching.
Yep.
And we were off to the races. So every deep conversation I've had, mainly he just makes me realize how I need to get out of my own way. That's the main thing. But we have Omar Pinto. How are you doing, sir?
Doing amazing. It's an honor to be here. We've done this a few times, Austin, but it's the first time with Anthony.
Yeah, it's the first time with Anthony.
This is going to be the best one. Trust me.
Yes.
I
can feel it.
The bar is set very high.
I understand Anthony knows everything.
That's what they tell me. That's what everybody tells me, but I don't feel like that's true. But what's interesting, Austin always talks about, like, I had this conversation with somebody who changed my life. And in that moment, and then he gets teary-eyed, right? Sometimes Austin gets a little teary-eyed on the podcast. So like I'm wondering if today's going to be one of those episodes. Like my gut tells me we're not making it through without a couple of teardrops.
Here's the deal. I am so tired. I've literally been on 35 Zoom calls. So I'm weak right now. My defenses are not that good either. So yeah, this is good.
This is going to be good.
Hey, me and Omar just had our kind of catch up on my podcast this week. It was an amazing conversation. So I only expect the same out of this. I'm going to go ahead and set the bar high too. And Omar, you said that you wanted to talk. This is an interesting topic when it comes. I would say the fear of this word is why entrepreneurs hit the wall. If that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Well, it doesn't make any sense to the audience because they don't know what the word is.
Well, you said the word is complacent. Right?
Yeah. Complacent or complacency. Yes.
Complacency, because they feel like they can't slow down because they're going to lose the momentum, or they can't. The flame's going to burn out and they can't turn the flame back on. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, a lot. Sustainability. So there's that point where, a lot of my clients come to me because they're just burnt, right? And so they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, and something's missing. Usually it's a fucking nap. Most of the time, they don't even give themselves permission to take a nap. Right. So the idea of being complacent, when Anthony brought it up, I'm grateful for the fact that, when he brought it up, or this idea of being raised with no with no struggle, right? If you've received too much too soon, you don't know how to appreciate things. All right. You start taking things for granted and it becomes easy to like let off the gas. And so recently I've had some struggles, I'm just before we press record, it's like, things are amazing for Omar in Costa Rica. And I've had like 2-3 weeks of hell. Right. Because
you want to know what's interesting? I know it and I have not spoke to you. You know why I know it?
How?
Because I've watched your social media. And you've posted more than you've ever posted in the last 6 months. And I feel the message. I feel the message from your post. I'm dead serious. We have not spoke. And I started thinking to myself, something's up with Omar. I should check in.
It's very true. Like when I'm in the zone, I really don't have a whole lot of time for social media, but there's these moments where I've got some time. And I do a lot of meditating and I do a lot of reflecting. And it's just one of those moments where it's like, universe, what am I unwilling to see? What am I unwilling to see? Help me unpack this, because I must be missing something, because you're slowing me down right now. There is lots of, I got a flat tire, last week, and I went to go get it fixed, and something told me, can you check the other tire as well? I had both tires had screws in them. Okay. And it was a slow leak. You know, I'd be watching the tires kind of go down. And it was just a series of letting the air out of my tires day after day, week after week. Yesterday, my wife gets home. Guess what she's got? Flat tire. So she's like, what is happening?
So
what is going on?
Metaphorically and reality-wise, the world, the universe is reaching its hand out.
Well, one of the things that came up too was, you know, you're getting too comfortable. Oh, you're getting way too comfortable. You know, you've got a thriving practice. You're making more money than you've ever made before. And you're starting to believe that it's always going to be like this. You know, like struggle is, I'm past the struggle. I'm no longer going to this moving forward, you know, after so much time has passed, right? Like all my worries are gone. Like there's a tiny little feeling of like, oh man, the worst is over.
Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone on this call right now, and we'll see if he admits it or not, I've had a really good 5 months in a row. Anthony's had a really good year. I wonder if this ever creeps into you, Anthony. I don't know. You operate different. You operate different, though. I don't know.
I've been having 38. I'm not 38. I've been having 37 years of good months. Like, it's interesting. As we were talking about the slow leak, I want to share 2 stories here. And one of them is actually a story I've never shared. I've never really talked about publicly, but it's a real shame point for me, which I realized just a couple of days ago. And I'm taking actions in my life to alleviate it. And so we're talking about complacency, and 2 words keep coming into my mind. One is resilience, and the other is acceptance. Mm-hmm. And first, on the resilience front, when we talk about growing up and having obstacles and struggles, that's really what it's building in a lot of ways, is a resilient human being. And when you don't have those obstacles, those struggles, then you don't build that muscle of resilience. And I do think that I've never articulated it, that I think resilience is maybe like the top 5 traits that I would wish any human to have, because if you're resilient, you can endure anything. Now, when it comes to complacency, when you're talking about the slow leak of your tire, so this is embarrassing. 2 stories. First story is not so embarrassing. Second story is a little bit more embarrassing. First story, when I was like 19, I had a car, and for literally 6 months straight, I would drive to the gas station every single day, twice a day, to fill it up with air, one of my tires, because I had a slow leak that every morning when I would go to my car, it would be flatter, and I would drive to the gas station on my way to work. I'd fill it up, and then I would go to school, do all this stuff, and then it would be flatter by the end of the night, and I'd fill it up again. And so, but the pain of that flatness wasn't enough to ever get me out of my complacency of just accepting that this is my life and my reality. When I look back at it, I'm like, God, that was a lot of wasted time and energy when I could have just gone and got the tire fixed. But I never did that because the pain of the moment wasn't greater than the inconvenience. And so I just kept enduring. Now I share that story because that one didn't bite me in the ass. The one that bit me in the ass cost me a body part. And I kept putting off, like, so my embarrassing thing is when I was young, I had horrible oral hygiene. I never brushed ever. And I have a missing tooth right up here that I had it removed when I was like 25 or so, but I lost it because the pain of like actually doing something earlier about it, like going into the dentist and actually getting it checked out, even though I knew something was wrong, I kept putting it off because I was complacent until finally it was too far gone and it had to be removed. And I share this because this is actually something I carry a lot of shame around. And I realized that earlier this week is this idea that I was so complacent and so not willing to take care of myself that it cost me something that I'll never get back. And I had like this like physical hole in my mouth to like show like that the physical manifestation of the hole that I feel inside. Right. And so when we talk about complacency, whether it's like losing a body part or it's like a flat tire or just like accepting life's circumstances, whether that's a relationship or a job that you hate or just wherever you are in the moment that you're like, it's not so bad. I can just keep putting up with it.
Omar, we always talk about this all the time, and maybe I could get your perspective. why as humans, because you've seen my thing, why do we have to hit the brick wall? Why do we have to get in such a dark place, alcoholism, or, you know, why can't we wake up to the fact? And it's kind of like Anthony said, it's not an inconvenience enough. Like, why do we have to do that as humans? We know.
I'm sitting here kind of, as I was listening to Anthony, and a lot of things were coming up. Okay. A lot of things were coming up for me. And, you know, that's a giant loaded question. There's, you know, 7 billion people on this planet. And what does it take? It takes what it takes. We've heard this before. It is what it is, and it takes what it takes. So for everybody's differently, but what just keeps running through my head is this idea of like this complacency. Like, I go to the dentist every 6 months. I hate going to the dentist. Okay. Like, I'm in that chair and my stomach's turning, you know, because I know the drill's coming out, you know, and I'm about to go through 45 minutes of hell, the whole thing. Right. But like, one of my best features are my teeth. Okay. Like, when I smile, I light up a room. Okay. I'm 5'9". I'm bald. I'm overweight. Okay. But my smile,
you got good chompers.
That's my claim to fame. So, I mean, and I've never been complacent. And one of the reasons why I've never been complacent about my teeth is that's something that was instilled in me as a child. Like, when we were kids growing up, my dad, you know, my father's from Colombia. My mom's from Cuba. They both immigrated. And they were like, my dad, neither one of them spoke English when they moved to the US. So they're like the success, the American dream success story. So my dad moves at 18. He's a dishwasher. By the time he's 30 years old, he has 2 kids. He's broke. He's married to my mom. Right. And he's got to figure something out. So it's like, in desperation comes genius. My dad ends up getting a job for Xerox. Okay. And he spends the next 35 years working for Xerox. And the first thing that he got was insurance. Okay. Health benefits. Like, that was it. Right. And so from that moment, every year we went to go get physicals. Every 6 months we got it was like without fail. Right. It was never a question. Like, I never even, like, when I think about it, when I talked about other people going to the dentist or not going to the dentist, right, it's almost like, if I don't go to the dentist in 6 months, something's wrong. I can feel my teeth getting kind of filmy and this kind of a thing. Right. And so I really start to think about my upbringing and how it was like impossible for me to be complacent in so many areas of my life. We used to call my father the drill sergeant. Okay. The warden, because he was on top of our shit all the time. Homework, bedroom, chores, responsibilities. It was just a constant, right? It was all this kind of constant. And it's true. This idea of like, there's always this little voice in my head, you know, and it's nowhere near as loud as it used to be. But that's only because I got coaching. Then I became a coach and I started coaching and I started helping people with this particular epidemic, which is the minute I would lay down to relax, I couldn't get 30 seconds into relaxing on the couch without this tremendous sense of guilt wafting over me. Right. And this little voice that's like, hey, you forgot to do this. You forgot to do that. You should be doing this. Why aren't you doing that? Right. And it's this constant need to be productive all the time. There should be something you should be doing something. And I remember as a kid, I'd come home from school, right? And I mean, I was exhausted at school, man. I had probably undiagnosed ADD. I've also got undiagnosed OCD. I'm completely distracted at any given moment. And so I struggled and struggled and struggled. The only thing that I could do is just show up to class, just like we talked about when we first said, 90% of success is just showing up, right? And so I learned that as a kid. I had friends that were cutting school. Dude, I can't cut school. This is the only time I have even a shot of retaining enough information to somehow pass the test with like a 70 or, you know, even a 60%. Right. And so there was this unbelievable sense of responsibility and obligation and walking on eggshells. So when I would come home, I'd be exhausted from school, and I'd go into my room and try and take a nap. And if I heard the garage door open and I knew it was my dad, I would jump out of bed and try and figure out what to do, like make my bed or go out there and start like, I'd be wiping the counter in the kitchen, right? Because if he caught me sitting around just dicking the dog,
it's going to put you to work.
Oh, he would find the work. So I better be doing something. It sounds like Anthony can relate.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My dad was military. And it's transposed itself later in life. Now, what's really interesting, and Austin and I have done episodes on this where we talk about giving yourself permission to relax and to rest and recover is actually the hardest part for most entrepreneurs. It's just not even like nobody's really judging you. You think they are, but they're not. You're judging yourself primarily, and all that internal pressure. It makes it so that when you are resting, you're like, you feel guilty for doing such. And it's interesting go ahead, Austin.
Well, it's the blessing and the curse of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Because when I'm working and I'm a high performer at my job, let's say waiting tables, I make a ton of money. I show up from this time to this time. I bang it out. I do it. I check out. Well, guess what? Here's another company, Austin. Here's another podcast. Here's another coaching call. Here's another when do we turn the faucet off?
Yeah. For me, as I progress in my entrepreneurial journey and really trying to separate myself from the day-to-day work that's involved in the businesses and really surrounding myself with like excellent team members who can do those things, my role becomes more and more, I hate the word visionary, but it's more about thinking. It's more about coming up with the ideas and the trajectories. And what's really frustrating about that is that thinking, just like plotting out time just to go and think and be free, because you can't just say for these 3 hours, I'm going to think. Like the way that I think is more like I need to go for a really long walk or spend an hour in the shower or do things that look a whole lot like nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you're like, it's like, this is the work, but it really doesn't feel like work. It feels like slacking.
Yes. And there's no way to do that kind of work that you're talking about without taking a severe pause. I was mentioning that earlier, like in this time right now, I guess I'm blessed with this lack of complacency. There's always a sense of like, I should be doing something. However, number one, I didn't start beating myself up. Number two, I didn't go into the sky is falling, right? It was like, what do I do with this time? I now have some extra time. What do I do with this time? That was the first big question. Now, the cool thing is I started just upping my meditation game. So normally, you know, on like a busy week, I'll get in like a 20-minute meditation in the morning. But now I could do a full hour meditation. And I'm really trying to connect with the message. And the message just was, you've got some time. Now let's see what you do with it. What are you going to do with this time? Are you going to panic? Are you going to stress? Or are you going to do this? Are you going to be productive in a healthy way? And so I remember like on Monday morning, I looked at my calendar. Normally I have an 8:00 coaching call every Monday. And I didn't have one this Monday. So I didn't have a coaching call till 10 a.m. And I was meditating in the morning and it said, why don't you check in with the most important person in your life and see what she's doing? Okay. And so I was like, honey, like, when's your first call? Oh, I don't have a call till 10. You know, I'm like, hey, why don't we take the dogs for a walk and let's make a nice breakfast and let's hang out. And we ended up having an incredibly powerful, about an hour conversation. It was heavy. It was deep. There was tears. And it was like, wow, this was extremely like important. Like this was. And so I asked myself, did this opportunity present itself because I needed to have this conversation with my wife and the universe is conspiring in my favor, right? Or is this just kind of a coincidence, right? And I choose to believe that that little moment right there told me, ooh, what else is coming? What else can you open yourself up for in these other spots throughout the week where you don't have a coaching call, where you don't have a responsibility towards one of your clients, right? And, you know, you're not going to fill that with some sort of a work objective. And that's been really good too. So as a matter of fact, yesterday we were talking about putting out fires. We took out a bank loan to construct the house. But here in Costa Rica, they will only release certain disbursements based on the full amount that you borrowed, depending on percentage of construction completed. And then that percentage is based on certain specific areas of the house being completed. And we just went flush. You know, we just kind of run out of cash. And we're like, we need to get the appraiser out there right now. We need another infusion of cash. And they came out and they're like, nope. No. And this is when the stress started coming, right? And so yesterday it was like, I got an idea, honey. Grab that list of requisites and let's you and I get down to the property and walk the property with the engineer, right? And we went there. We probably spent a good hour and a half going through every single one of these. And I go, give me a timeline for this. Give me a timeline for this. Give me a timeline for this. Right. And I don't want shit done until this is complete. Right. And so we did all that. Right. I felt really good. Plus they made a lot of advancements since the last time we saw them. And we said, okay, great. I go, honey, email the bank, have them send the appraiser for next Wednesday. By next Wednesday, all of these things should be completed. Right. Amazingly, today we got an email from the bank. It says, you know what, based on the percentage of completion, we're not going to give you the full disbursement, but we're going to give you most of it. Right. And so speaking of complacency, right, I could just leave it in the hands of the bank, berate my architect and engineer, like, because that's a thought. Yeah, I love to go into the, attack mode. So I didn't get what I want. And the attack dog in me comes out. This is your fault. You fucked up, And none of that came out. It was like constant. Okay, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to teach me? And more importantly, what's my next step here? Right? Is there a next step here? Right? And it was just this constant in my head. And then when those were just the questions in my meditations. And so it's just been this kind of a thing, right? Where it's just been like every time I softly kind of enter into that space where I ask the universe the question, I ask for a little bit of guidance, a little bit comes right now. And what it's telling me is the word that just popped into my head was balance, right? It was just this word just immediately just popped in my head. Omar, you need more balance, right? Sometimes you work too much. And if you're not working enough, you're not being as productive with your time as you could be, right? And it's again, it's not talking about the work. You're not, you could be using that off time to spend more quality time with your wife or with your daughter or with friends or reaching out to people. Like Austin is, notorious for the text messages. Okay. Like I can count on Austin not going very long without me hearing from him. Right. And I'm notorious for sending no messages ever to anyone. Okay. And so there was a part of me too that was like, I need to reach out to some of my friends, right? Like I have some time right now. How can I share the love, as cliche and as, cliche and whatever that sounds. But it was, and I've had some amazing conversations. My uncle, just by thinking about my uncle, he sends me a message on Monday and he's like, hey, can we get a Zoom call this week? And I'm like, here we go. Like all I have to do is really tap in. I'm great at manifesting. Right. But the universe requires that I do a little bit of work too. Okay. I can't just like, I can't sit on my laurels or rest on my laurels, which is the complacency piece. Right. But at the same time, am I using my time effectively? Right. Or am I obsessing on and misusing that time and not being balanced? That's what's really kind of coming up for me over these last couple of weeks and even today as we talk about this idea of complacency.
It's so interesting that I think with entrepreneurs in general, we tie our productivity to some business outcome or some dollar amount. And those other areas of like relationships and family and friends, well, that is just as productive of time, but we never seem to count that, right? That also is relaxation and rejuvenation, and it refills the tanks. But generally, when you're hanging out with your buddies and your friends, if you stop to take a second, you might feel a little bit guilty about it, being like, oh, I could be working right now, you know. But if we could somehow flip that paradigm to realize that that is also work, that is also very important work towards not just building a business, but towards building a life worth living, right? And it goes to this idea that I'm fascinated with, which is maximizing your return on life. It's not just about the business outcome. And so I wonder if when you're telling the story about that meditation and you thought about your wife, then you went and had this like incredible morning, if that was the universe trying to put something in front of you saying, hey, if you capitalize on this opportunity right now, it's there for the plucking, or if that opportunity is always there, you just have to go pluck it whenever you want.
Jesus Christ. Dude, here's the deal.
There it is. The zinger.
I'm sorry. When before he said the words, I felt something coming up in my chest, like he was about to bring the hammer, and he did it, and I was like,
Bazinga.
But that's the thing, right? Like maybe that's the lesson that we all need to take away, is saying like those incredible moments, they're incredible because we take advantage of them so infrequently, but they're there. Like all the ingredients for that magical moment, they're always there. Like you have your wife, you have the dogs, you have the morning, you have this. It's always there. What are you going to do with it?
Man.
Wow.
Man. I'm speechless. Like
dude, I swear to God,
I don't even know where to go from here. Right. All of a sudden my brain's just going.
Okay. I can't even think right now. So, dude, I'm telling you, that is going to be with me all weekend and maybe through the next week. Cause here's what just came to me that I'm going to write it down. I don't know where I'm going to write it down. I don't have anything in front of me. Right. And it's just very simply, it's always there. Whatever it is, it's always there.
Yeah. I'm reading The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you guys have read it, but it's powerful. The concept that like everything you need, life is just now. It's just this moment, and all the ingredients that you need for.
If that's the case, then can you move from an identity of a reactionary person to a creator? Right? Meaning like the mindset and the growth is like, I can create whatever business, whatever clients, whatever moment with my spouse or my kids that I want. And there's so much abundance in that statement. It's saying when I'm available and when I create, it's the same thing that you said with fucking Leland or whoever you said it with, is tell Omar what you said about good news.
Oh, I was like, I don't know where you're going with this, but I mean, the good news conversation is fascinating because the reason we only hear bad news in the newspapers and in social media, the only reason that we report it is because it's the minority of events that are occurring in the world. The vast majority of events occurring in the universe are net good. So overwhelmingly good that we don't even notice it anymore. It's not news. And that's why we talk about this thing that happened, it's bad, or this thing that happened, that's bad. But if you really stop to think like, hey guys, the sun came up. How freaking amazing is that? We still have air to breathe. How amazing is that? We have internet. We're on this call right now. I'm talking to a guy in Costa Rica and another guy who I'm not sure where he is because he's always moving, but how amazing is that? Or like, as you really start to go through the list of things in your life that are good, like, yeah, Omar, we got some fires to put out, but fuck, man, net, it's so overwhelmingly positively good right now that it's just not even worth commenting on because it's so good.
It's actually, yeah, it's the only word that comes to me right now is pathetic. It's pathetic to think of how amazing my life is, right? This, and I remember because I called one of my, as soon as when things start to bubble over, like first it starts to boil a little bit, but then it feels like it's starting to bubble over. I start making phone calls to some of the most affluent, successful people in my circle that are here in Costa Rica, just in case. And so one of them's like, yeah, Cadillac problems, Omar, Cadillac problems. Yeah. And it's like, as you mentioned that, I think about somebody that imagine 200 years ago, the way we lived, electricity, indoor plumbing, that kind of a thing. Like if somebody from the past were to come into my house and turn on the faucet and go, oh my God, there's water here. Like you just turn this thing on and there's water and like you can drink it. Like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, how'd you do that?
Dude,
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, let's take a moment to reflect. I have a bottle of clean drinking water right next to me within arm's reach. And there's people still on the planet that do not, no matter how far they walk, do not have access to the clean water.
Yesterday, I spoke to somebody in Japan, England, Mexico, New York, California, Texas, and Kansas City in the same day. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is ridiculous, right? So true story. I was in Calabasas. This was last summer. And I had a friend, I'm not trying to take it to a bad place, but my friend, he's no longer here. Okay. That's all I'm saying. So it made me look at my sobriety. It really made me check into myself. And I started beating myself up like big time, right? Whenever that happens, I call my buddy Lucas. And he said this to me. It's as simple as this. He said, listen, let me get this straight. You're in the Topanga Hills right now, next to Malibu, with an amazingly hot girlfriend, working from your laptop. Yeah, sounds like a terrible life, dude. You should really just complain for the rest of it. And I was like, yep, you're good. Okay, I'm great. Thanks. Straighten it out. It really does take somebody, right? Because here's the issue, is that's not what we do. That's not what a large majority of people do, because they have their victim circles and they feed off of that. You explained to this on my podcast, the drama triangle. They feed off of this. Well, no, but I'm the worst here and this is the bad, because as Anthony said, net, life is pretty fucking awesome. Like, I get to make money. I haven't worn shoes in like 3 days. I'm still in my workout clothes from 6 a.m. Like, it's pretty amazing that we get to operate and do businesses this way. So how do we as entrepreneurs and just people in general, is it a trigger that we need to create? Is it a saying that we need to say to ourselves to not be complacent? Right? Like what's the rub?
I think that the beautiful thing, and what I just right now from in the middle of this call, or in the middle of just this thought and this idea, is that I don't have to worry about that. It showed up for me. It showed up for me. It said, oh, Omar's getting complacent. Let me help him out with that. Hey, he doesn't have balance. Let me help him out with that. Hey, maybe Omar's not appreciating where he's at. Let me help him out with that.
So is this based on the same concept as the surrender experiment?
What's the surrender experiment?
Michael Singer talks about how when you just let go of your need to control life will show up for you in multiple ways, because it's always working for you.
100%. So, right now it's like, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? And most of the time it's be present. So if I'm not present, if I'm, worrying about or regretting something that's going on that happened in the past, or I'm terrified about what's coming or not coming in the future, then it makes it impossible for me to be present. And, like the power of now, the only thing we have is right now in this moment. And so this is why I'm such a huge fan of meditation, because it's one of those, as soon as you close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, we're all looking at the exact same thing. If every single human being on this planet sat down, closed their eyes, took 3 deep breaths, you would all see the same thing: darkness. And that's the truth. That's our truth. And in that darkness is where we heal, where we get answers, where we learn and grow and expand. It's from that place. And so, you know, I've been doing that this past couple of weeks. It's like, you know, I'm sitting in there and I'm meditating, and it's the same message, right? It's like, you're not going to get what you're looking for here, because I know what you want. You want the answers, Omar. And now is not the time for answers. Now's the time to be. This is what it's time for. Sometimes I'm going to give you the answer. Sometimes I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance. Right now, you need to take it easy. You need to appreciate what you have, and you need to quit worrying so much.
An idea I've been really fascinated with recently is the idea of stillness and empty space.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically thinking about how big the universe is and how much you see around you, but then thinking about how much you don't see around you and how much space that there is between everything. And if you were to zoom into the molecular level, you start to realize that even the things that appear solid, when you look at it atomically, there actually is a vastness of space. It's primarily empty space, as the atoms are infinitely far from one another as you start to zoom in. And what's really interesting about that is that we only recognize the materials, the forms, the mass around us, but we don't see the space and how much there is. Like, and it's in the space that forms and things exist, right? Like the distinction between this camera, the gap between that and this light and this computer, like there's this vastness of space all around us. And what I love about meditation is it's an opportunity for me to lose myself in that empty space and realize that that's actually where life, the majority of life occurs, is in the emptiness. And to Austin's question, like, how do we as entrepreneurs or as individuals, how do we figure out how, because we've been talking about 2 different types of complacency. One is the recognizing that there's a potential inside of us all and that we need to be striving towards that. And when we're not, we feel it in the form of discontentment. Like, I have greatness in me, I need to strive to be that, but also recognizing that you can't always be striving, that there has to be this push and this pull and this rest and this go. And I'll leave it with this. The story that I don't know very well, so I'll probably butcher it, but there was like this race to the South Pole, or maybe it was the North Pole. Somebody was racing to somewhere really cold. And like, people wanted to be the first person there. And there was like these 2 teams that had very different strategies for how they were going to get there. But if you were betting, you would bet on one of these 2 teams. And one of the teams was, we are going to go as hard as we can until we need to take a break. And then we're going to go again. And they just kept doing that as hard as they could, take a break, hard as they could. And they had a huge advantage. This is like the tortoise and the hare example, really. And the other guy, what they did was the whole team, they said, all we're doing every day is 20 miles. No matter how good the weather, no matter how bad the weather, we just do 20 miles every day. That's it. So they weren't lulled into doing more on those good days, and they weren't lulled into doing less on the bad days. And net, they won by an overwhelming amount. I don't even know if the other team made it, honestly. And so the example there is like to realize that to chase your greatness, to achieve that thing that you know you have inside of you, and I believe you have it too, like you have to go hard when it's time to go hard, and you have to go turn off when it's time to turn off. And you have to recognize that both are just as important. You cannot have progress long-term without both being in balance.
No, I could not agree more. And the thing is too, I may have convinced myself that I had that already, right? Like I work Monday through Thursday. I have Fridays off, right? And I have my weekends. I have time with my family. You know, like I've compartmentalized a lot. I could be working 6 days a week. That's an extra 2 days of income, right? Those are real dollars. Okay. But I was like, for me, it's not about the money. Okay. It was for a long time. And when I decided that it wasn't going to be about the money started coming. Right. So I like that strategy. And, in my mind, it's like, I've got plenty of balance, right? I have my work and I go hard. Okay. Monday through Thursday, I go hard. It's the podcast. It's my coaching calls. It's, all the things that I do throughout the week. Right. And then come Friday, we check the property, and I do a couple of errands on Friday, which leaves Saturday and Sunday wide open for everything, right? For whatever I need. That balance. But for whatever reason, balance showed up again, right? We're even having this conversation about, is there a need for more balance? Do I need to, yet again, take a look at how I balance my life? How do I balance my relationships? Because there's another thing, right? I had that conversation with my uncle that, we haven't spoken to in a couple months. And so relationships, if I were to sit here and say, in reference to the balance you have in your life, and what part of your balance includes relationships? And it would probably be a pretty epic fail. Okay. Because, I do, this is my shame moment. I feel a little embarrassed saying this right now, maybe a lot embarrassed, right? I do not cultivate, I do not, I don't even know the word for it. Look at that. I don't maintain my relationships.
Nurture.
I don't. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And that's very telling as a coach. When I can't even think of the word, I immediately tell my client, let's stop there for a moment. We need to honor that word. You haven't used that in a long time, have you? Right? What does that mean? What is that telling you right now? And so right now, it's interesting because a lot of emotions are coming up right now. Right? And so what relationships do I need to nurture at this time? And it feels like right now, that's what's hitting really hard on this conversation with you guys. This word of complacency is in reference to my relationships.
100%. I agree with that, but I also know you very well. Okay. And I wouldn't beat yourself up too much for it, even though I agree. I would like you to reach out a little more, but that's for another time off air. But that's a whole nother story. But the reason that you don't want to nurture multiple relationships above what you're currently serving is because then they would ask on you of your time that is dedicated for you and your family.
There is that. Thank you, Austin. There is that.
And you are very protective with your life that you have spent 20 years cultivating, and you won't let other people dictate the terms of your life.
Got hard boundaries. I mean, I teach that. Hard boundaries.
I'm at a place where I have to nurture those relationships because those relationships are beneficial to my business consulting clients. Because if I don't have them, then what am I, that's a value proposition that I sell to my clients. You're selling them mindset, business. I'm going to fix your purse. Like, you're not going out and seeking like a book writer for your, it's like,
no. But here's the thing though. Right now, this is what's the most important piece of all this is a bunch of emotions just came up. I am sitting in it's all in here and right here, right? So my heart chakra and my solar plex, like I feel this need to breathe deeply, to move some energy. Like there's like it landed. Okay. So whatever I've been seeking over the, what is it? Like, I'm like, right. If I keep talking, I'm going to start crying. Okay. I can feel it right now. Like, I'm like, okay, guys, great to see you. Thanks for this amazing podcast.
but hear me out.
Nobody leaves until we get tears from one of you.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
What was it? No, but hear me out. Let me button this bad boy up and we'll get out of here so you can go cry. So, so what this message would have never hit you if you didn't do what?
Show up.
Boom.
Yeah. I needed to show up, because it is, You want me to cry? You want me to cry? You want me to cry?
No. Listen, every time I tell myself that I didn't want to, and I did it anyway, something good has come out of it. A client, I've helped somebody, somebody's helped me. And so my message to you guys, don't get complacent in your success to think that you don't need to show up for yourself, right? And that means show up for your spouse, for your significant other, for your kids and everything. Because I'm telling you right now, me and Anthony talked about this on a few earlier podcasts. If you do not schedule time with your significant others, they get what's left over, and that's not okay with them.
Mm-mm. It is not.
Because you can have all the money in the world, but if your fucking wife hates your guts and you're not at your kids' baseball games, what success do you have?
Well, here's the thing, and I have a lot of love for you, Austin. I know I needed to show up for this call because my wife gets all of me. That's not the case. She does get all of me. Like there's nothing in here right now in this conversation where my wife's showing up. Neither is my business, even my daughter. You know what I mean? I recognize that for me, I have some tremendous friends.
Your friends.
And I do not nurture those relationships. And it's hurting me right now. It's deep. So I know the work that I have. I came here, I showed up, and the message came. This is the message that I've been trying to see. But, most of us are so terrified of the tears, especially men. Like, I hate on this podcast right now. And fucking Austin is probably going to use this as one of his snippets, you piece of shit.
That's a snippet right there.
Yeah, totally. And I'm like overwhelmed right now, which tells me that I'm on to it. Like, okay, it's there.
So not to double down on this, but I am, because I like to press good entertainment. Before we get out of here, you're about to see a bro moment, Anthony. So there are, and this is my call to anybody that's listening to this. There are people that in the right moment, in the right time, show up for you more than you could ever know. I can't tell you the amount of hours that I've spent with this fucking guy when I was fighting addiction, fighting a shitty marriage, fighting hating my fucking job, fighting who I was as a human, 70 pounds heavier. He's seen it all. He's got the books to write it. And this man, one of the reasons I'm coaching is this human being said to me, like, dude, you're like fucking crazy talented. Like, go change the world. And sometimes you have to take somebody else's belief in you long enough to hold that, right, and hang on to it and just jump out there. And he sent me a message the other day after I sent him a message about how it's so fun to watch me just run, and he knows that he can't coach me for shit now because I'm like a fucking bull out of a cage, and it's just like he's out there running, right? But I just want to have it on record to tell you that I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for the gifts that this man has. And I just thank you so much, like, for this conversation, and I can't thank you enough.
I love you, brother. I love you with all my heart. Thank you.
Love you too, man. Anthony, but let's just say, dude, this is not the first time he brings
fucking Anthony cracked me like a fucking walnut. Jesus Christ.
He brings the zingers, bro. It comes out of nowhere, dude. Anthony, you got any homework for the guest, man? Powerful episode.
I want to drive home the idea that, because it's so foundational, the idea that showing up is 80% of success. And ostensibly this podcast is the psychology of success. But I want to say this is that regardless of whether or not you want to show up, because majority of the times you don't want to, it's because showing up involves doing something. It's hard. It could be mean showing up in a relationship or for work or for networking. It could be all sorts of things, like whatever it means to show up. but you will never regret having shown up, ever. There's not a single time when you're like, I don't want to go do that thing, but then you do it, that you look back and maybe that thing was a waste of time, but you don't regret having done it, having shown up. And so keep that in mind. We'll end with a Jim Rohn quote, which is, you're going to suffer from one of two pains. It's either the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. Don't let it be the regret from not showing up.
Thank you, gentlemen. Guys, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to walk out.
Drop.